Yo. How's the movie? Good. Echo, really? Huh. Where's the echo? I don't see anything else lighting up. The mic, the video mic is not on. Sounds okay now? Oh, well, nothing changed. What? Did you have two tabs open? Oh. Okay. ETM, thank you for the sub. Hi guys. By the way, I'm turning this off. I just kept this up to show you. That's what I owe you guys. 368 pieces, okay? 368 pieces. Now I'm turning it off. I owe 368 pieces. Okay. I'm trying to figure out what page I'm on. Yeah. Whoa, 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 whoa. I just broke it. Alright, here we are. Page 10. Cat, the cat is in bed. Cat's in bed. Who dat? Thank you for the raid. Thank you for the raid. I need to add a display capture. Centic! Thank you for the 2 years. Perfector Oculus, thank you for your Prime. 100T Goal, thank you for the Prime. With every dream I made come true, I found you. Damn it. God, we haven't done one of these in so long, I don't know where to put the things. There? I'm gonna get rid of this. I don't think we need the overhead cam. Well, hello, you guys. This is Ludwig's jacket. Snack stream? What? Snack stream. This broke. Thank you for the biddies. Top right would be better for the manual, but then it blocks off the castle. Which is like mainly what you're looking at. I can look at make it smaller, but then you can't see it. Hi, Christopher. I mean, I can, if that's not too small, I can do it like that. You guys will also want a video. What do you want to watch this evening? Do you want to do Parkitect? Karon, thank you for the 2 months. Not Parkitect, sorry. What's that thing called that we usually watch? Defunct Land, not Daily Dose. Reminder, I owe you only 368 pieces, by the way. That's what we're working on. That's what I owe you with. No, not MTV Monday. Whoa, what the freak is that? That's a crazy thumbnail. Prinso, thank you for the raid as well. Thank you for the 5 months. Mr. Buff, thank you for the prime. Forbidden Fractal, thank you for the 4 months. Alright. I don't know where we were at with Defunctland. I wish it would show you. Sometimes it doesn't show you what you've watched. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Oh, this one's fun. Oh, cool. Were we season 2? I don't know where we were. Oh. What I think I found us. I found us. Alton Towers. We watched that, and then they have their podcast. They've Trivia Night. History of Journey into Imagination. Yeah, I believe that's our next one. Whoa! Claire, thank you for the 10 gifted.
The Journey into Imagination.
Alright. Guys, if you haven't been here for a Lego stream before, they're very, very chill. Wow, so many raids. Hello, Neptune. Thank you for the biddies. Or thank you for the raid, not the biddies. What the fuck is wrong with me? Thank you for the raid. I appreciate that. Luke, thank you for the prime. Sorry, my brain is fried. Thank you for the raid. My brain is fried. My brain is fried. My brain is fried. Okay, we are gonna watch a video and just do some Legos, and it's gonna be super chill. And we don't do these very often because they don't get views, and so we're just gonna be chill. We're gonna be chill. We watch Defunctland, and we just get cozy, and hopefully some of you are going to Beige, and yeah. So we're just gonna add a display capture. We're gonna add this source. We're gonna put it down here. There we go. Let me open the bag before we get too loud. Alright, I only owe you guys 380 or 68 pieces. I'm not exactly sure how far that'll get us. I think it'll be like 2, maybe 3 bags. So yeah. But yeah. Can we smoke in between videos? Oh shit, I forgot the separator bins. I forgot my bins. 1 second. Oh god. Oh Jesus, I don't really fit. Oh god. Counter. I'm just gonna keep the counter off onto another screen because I don't want to add it. boy. There goes some Lego pieces. Alright. Okay, 368 pieces. That's all I owe you. Ugh. Guys, no more smoking. Okay. Wait, what? The history. Wait, what is this? Oh. It's like a duo video. I see. Let me open these. Guys, where'd the freaking knights go? Oh, there they go. They got broken off. I know where they go. They go right here. Thank you for the sub. Okay. Alright, I'm gonna count. What page is this? 292. I'm gonna count what this whole bag is real quick. So then we know. So then we don't have to worry about it. And, 292. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 22, 23, 24. This is plus 4. 28, 31, 32, 33, 34, 36, 38. Keegs, thank you for the 19, and Zachary, thank you for the 2. Wait, chat, what I was just at? 38? Oh my god, I'm just gonna count these as I go. It's too hard. Never mind. That was too difficult. I'll just do both pages at a time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright. Okay, here we go.
Is not gone. And that's one thing that I'm hesitant to do episodes on for Defunctland, is because it's still there, kind of. I mainly deal with just extinct rides.
Wait, this is a podcast. Okay. Wait, what? Okay, so it says wait. History of, wait, what? Journey into Imagination? But then when you go into it, it's podcast. Let's see if it's any good.
But do you consider, Ron, that it's gone? Do you think that the original intention and the original ride is gone, or do you think
it's gone? It's completely gone. The story, the message. See, Epcot Center was supposed to be an inspirational park. The Imagination Pavilion showed you where everything else in Epcot came from, where everything in the world came from, because it all comes from the imagination, from creativity.
Is that good?
And so that's gone. That is gone.
It's gone, chat. It died. Oh, I didn't count Daisy. Daisy's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. Good intro. Do I need to turn the video down still? the mic. I can't get the mic any closer to me.
On October 1st, 1982.
Dom, thank you for the 5 gifted. Also, why are you awake? Chat. Actually, I lied. Yes, I can. That's better. Right? Pog you! Steenie Weenie, thank you for the 11 months. Alright. Am I building Hogwarts? No, I'm building Disney Castle. This is not my normal stream. This is a one-off thing we do every once in a while for cozy little hangouts. And I did it as a sub goal today, and we did it, and we got a bunch of stuff. So yeah. The mic is pointed towards my face. I just don't, it's just low because otherwise it's right here. So, and I can't do that. So yeah. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Anyway, so this is just chill stream, so just get your snackies, get your blankie. We're watching Defunctland. If we get bored of it, we will watch something else. But Defunctland is like history of like different rides and stuff, and it's fun with building the Disney castle because it's all Disney-ish themed, and so it's fun and cool and awesome. And look, I'm making Daisy. Oh wait, she needs her tail. Chat, where's Daisy's tail? And every once in a while, I lose a piece and I get really mad, and then chat has to help me find it. And it's awesome. There's this. We're missing Daisy's bow, but I assume it's going to show up somewhere. So just keep your eyes out for a purple bow. Okay. Lego sponsor her now. Lego will never sponsor me. They hated me, Chad. Because I'm too good at their Legos. Wait, didn't we make Donald? I feel like we made Donald and I lost him. Oh well. Awkward. Alright, focus, chat. Let's go. We did make Donald. We totally made Donald. He'll show up. He's somewhere. You said you lost him last time? Oh, really? That sucks. We lost Donald? Like, perma lost him? Is he on the front? Chat, is Donald in the front? Oh, yeah, Donald's in the front. Look at him. He's just hanging on the gate. Oh, he's fine. Donald's good. Cool. We're just missing Daisy's bow. All right, focus, chat. We're learning.
The second park at Walt Disney World opened to the public. The then named Epcot Center was the third Disney park to be built, and the first to stray away from the Magic Kingdom style. The Imagineers took Epcot in a different direction than Walt Disney's original experimental prototype Community of Tomorrow, choosing to create a theme park reminiscent of a classic World's Fair. While Disneyland and the Magic Kingdom promoted the idea of fantasy and the power of story, Epcot would showcase the importance of technological and cultural progress. In the Future World section of the park, pavilions were planned themed around the major concepts supporting society, such as transportation, energy, communication, technology, and the environment. However, there was an outlier. A large building featuring 2 large glass pyramids, named the Imagination Pavilion. It was much less tangible of an idea than the ocean of computers, but the execution made its inclusion clear, and its development had started nearly a decade prior.
Walt Disney's pledge that Disneyland would never be completed now rests with a new generation of designers, like Tony Baxter.
I started with Disneyland back when I first,
Thank you, Finkelbutt.
in my first year of college, and I was employed out there as an ice cream scooper. And it wasn't that I wanted to scoop ice cream, but I really wanted to work at Disneyland.
In the mid-1970s, Big Thunder
don't we
Mountain
all?
Railroad was entering development at Disneyland.
Chat, I
The
lost a
project
piece.
was the first spearheaded by Imagineering legend Tony Baxter. It was to replace the Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland, a Frontierland train ride featuring animated animals. This took up a lot of the area's land, and the plans for Big Thunder still left plenty of space for other attractions.
Disneyland is around.
Wait, chat, I'm actually on crack. Chat, I'm missing a flat white piece. Did I not open all the bags? Is that why I'm missing Daisy's bow, too? I feel like I'm missing a whole bag. I don't have this piece right here. Okay. Look at S. Oh. Yeah, I was missing a whole bag. Found it. Why were there like 5 bag 10s? That was weird.
Around 80 developed acres. In addition to that are these 30 acres up here, 35, that have nothing in them.
Baxter didn't want to leave this section of the park unutilized, so he created an extension to Big Thunder's story that would provide a wonderful blueprint for a new land to be named Discovery Bay. Since Big Thunder Mountain had gold within it, Baxter concocted a story of what the lucky miners would do after finding their fortune. The man that survived the mine's collapse was Jason Chandler, a young innovator that would continue to head west with his wealth, founding Discovery Bay and funding the inventions of the explorers and scientists that resided there. This steampunk dream would feature attractions such as a Nautilus simulator and underwater restaurant, a dark ride shooter inside of a fireworks factory, and an attraction called Professor Marvel's Gallery of Wonders.
None of this
animatronic show was to feature the unique Carousel Theater rotating show building that other Disney attractions, the Carousel of Progress and America Sings utilized. The compelling inventor Professor Marvel would put on a musical showcase featuring his wacky experiments and his fantastical animals, one of which was his trusty pet dragon.
Dude, this guy had good ideas. These sound cool.
It's kind of a once-only place in time. It's a Victorian place that occurred at the turn of the century. It's the kind of place that Jules Verne or H.G. Wells might have inhabited. So you'll actually be able to, for instance, board the Nautilus and have a very elegant meal down below the water while you're being serenaded on the pipe organ and looking out at all the scenic wonders of the ocean floor from those overhead windows. This is just one of the adventures that might go into here. There's, like I said, a flight on an aerial suspended monorail system that looks like a dirigible, and a time machine.
The Discovery Bay concept was announced in 1976, but it unfortunately never came to fruition. Disney had a lot on their plate as they neared the new decade, including the construction of Epcot and their first park overseas, Tokyo Disneyland. This, and the failure of the 1974 film, an adaptation of Jules Verne's The Island at the Top of the World, is most likely the reason the Discovery Bay does not rest along the rivers of America today. But Baxter's concepts were too unique and interesting to be forgotten, and he attempted to implement them into his next project.
They sound like such good ideas.
As development on Epcot began, Baxter was given the opportunity to design the Land Pavilion, which was to be sponsored by a logging company. Baxter's design put an emphasis on agriculture and mankind's usage of resources, all while displaying the beauty of Earth's nature.
Me for real.
The show building was comprised of 7 towering crystals, 5 of which would feature different environments that guests could walk through. The pavilion's main attraction was to be called the Blueprints of Nature, a suspended dark ride that took guests on a hot air balloon ride over the different habitats of the world. The finale of the ride would lift guests through the largest crystal to give them a view of the walkthrough habitats surrounding the pavilion. This was Baxter's attempt to salvage a concept for a Discovery Bay attraction, the Western Balloon Ascent, that would have allowed guests breathtaking views while transporting them to Fantasyland. The original Land Pavilion was another brilliant concept by Baxter, but once again, it was not to be. The land lost its sponsor, and Kraft Foods quickly replaced them.
Womp womp.
Kraft was more interested in a pavilion focused on agriculture and food production, and Baxter's concept was scrapped in favor of attractions such as Living with the Land and the now defunct Kitchen Cabaret. Of course, Baxter wasn't about to let his ideas die, and his third attempt was the charm.
Hello.
Hello.
We're having a wonderful time. And best of all, we'll be saving all of it to enjoy again and again. You can too with a Brownie movie camera like this. I was just taking a picture of Dave and Ricky on Tom Sawyer's raft. Now I'll get one of Ozzy enjoying himself in his own way.
What?
That picture will be a big hit at our house.
You can get a Brownie movie camera for only $32.50 or as little as $3.50 down. Remember,
how much money is that?
Brownie movie cameras are made by Kodak, and the surest way to better movies is to insist on that name, Kodak.
Kodak, a longtime sponsor of Disney parks, was set to sponsor the pavilion located directly south of the Land Pavilion. The topic had not been chosen for the pavilion, and Kodak just wished for something imaginative. This caused Baxter to consider reviving another concept from Discovery Bay, Professor Marvel and his pet dragon, who would lead guests on a ride signifying the importance of imagination. Baxter and his team were aware audiences would not enjoy a lecture on the concept, so they did their best to create a world of fantasy that would inspire guests to use their own imaginations. The ride was able to use some of the steampunk-era designs left over from Discovery Bay, and they even snuck a few hot air balloons and fireworks in there as well. Baxter tweaked the story of the Professor and Dragon to the memorable Dreamfinder and Figment. Dreamfinder would be a friendly bearded man with a Santa Claus-esque jolliness to him, and Figment would be a cute dragon that Dreamfinder had conjured from his creativity. Baxter recalls that he got the idea for Figment from an episode of the television series Magnum P.I., where a character whose lawn had been chewed by a goat was told that it was a figment of his imagination.
And don't tell me it's a figment of my imagination. Figments don't eat rare tropical flowers. Mine have been decimated.
Baxter became enthralled by the word, as it was easily recognizable yet not fully utilized in any major way at the time. The late Imagineer Ex Intencio and others also had a part in bringing the Figment that audiences found when the attraction opened to life, with his 2 tiny wings, eyes big and yellow, horn of a steer, and a lovable fellow. After the ride's topic and characters were created, the Imagineers created various sections of the dark ride, each focusing on a different medium that imagination helps create. The original theme song of the ride was recorded by frequent Disney songwriter Robert Mullen.
Let's all take a journey into imagination.
Oh.
Where inspiration
He's lovely.
goes far beyond our world of space and time.
But this was rejected, and the even more frequent Disney songwriters, the Sherman Brothers, were hired instead.
I thought it was
They
bad.
composed the theme song, entitled One Little Spark, that had different variations sung throughout the ride. The attraction was to originally have 2 steep drops to add some excitement to the ride system, but these were removed during construction. The attraction also featured a unique variation to the classic Omnimover ride system used in many Disney attractions. This version included separate 4-car trains that could move at different speeds independently from the other trains at different points in the ride. The attraction was to have fog machines to give the illusion the guests were floating on a cloud, but these did not last long as the fog would have damaged the sets. With the elements designed and construction beginning, Journey into Imagination was already showing its brilliance. But Epcot's opening day was approaching fast, and the Imagineers were far behind schedule.
Oh, the Imagineers. They're always behind schedule, those goofs.
As we talk about tomorrow, here's a bulletin for you. There is no imagination crisis in this country, especially here at Disney World. We've gathered a panel of imagination experts just to prove it.
Hello there, Brian. Good to have you here at Epcot.
And who is Dreamfinder?
Well, I'm kind of the host of the Journey into Imagination show out here at Epcot Center. I travel all over the universe, collecting the stuff dreams are made of. Sounds, colors, ideas, anything that sparks the imagination. And I store these sparks in the Journey into Imagination Pavilion. And the guests and I recombine them into new ideas and new inspiration.
I am left to assume that you do not dream alone. Who's your little purple friend?
This is actually something I dreamed of. This is my Figment, and I'm very proud of him. You see, I threw together the 2 tiny wings, the nose of a crocodile, the horns of a dilemma, and all the calm and reserve of a small child's birthday party.
The Imagination Pavilion began construction a mere 15 months before Epcot's opening. The pavilion was to feature 3 main attractions: the signature dark ride, its post-show, and the 3D film Magic Journeys. Per Kodak's contract with Disney, one of these 3 attractions was required to operate on opening day. Journey into Imagination was experiencing a few snags with construction on top of the already short window the team was given to create the ride. Journey's post-show, the interactive playground ImageWorks, featured state-of-the-art interactive technology. The Imagineers hadn't worked out all of the kinks in the complex walkthrough attraction, so it wouldn't be ready for Epcot's October 1st opening either. Finally, the 3D film Magic Journeys, also using groundbreaking technology to create 3D effects, was running behind schedule. The Imagineers were out of options. Something had to be open at the pavilion. Their solution was to shoot a short promotional film, using the strolling Dreamfinder, played by Ron Schneider, who was still developing the popular walk-around character at the time. The short film was to play in the Magic Eye Theater and was to show a preview of the unfinished Magic Journeys.
3 months?
Figment, my impatient young friend. You can't rush creativity. Takes time to do things.
This guy has a way better beard than the other guy.
And is it now the
Yeti!
time for a preview of the Magic Journey film?
By golly, you're right. I'd better hurry along.
Yeti, thank you for the raid. I appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. Yeti, thank you for the 20 months. Very suspicious. Oh my god, what? That was a bit dramatic of a Kermit
Now,
jump.
Dreamfinder? The glasses?
now, Figment. And all our friends in the audience, too. With special glasses on, now we can all enjoy a
3D
preview
glasses.
of Magic Journey.
Chat, put your glasses on.
However, this film was not used, because less than a week before Epcot's opening, Magic Journeys was ready. 2 months later, ImageWorks would open the pavilion's main doors. Visitors would walk past the queue for the unfinished dark ride, make their way up the stairs, and be given a view of Epcot through the glass pyramids. They could then enter the playground of the future. There were a variety of activities in which guests could interact with the technology. This included Dreamfinder School of Drama, an attraction that allowed guests to star in a movie with Dreamfinder via a pre-recorded film and blue screen. In these films, Dreamfinder was played by the then young Imagineer Joe Rohde.
Oh my gosh,
Guests were
this
given
guy's
the
in
option
everything.
of 3 films: Enchanted Travelers, Wily Wizard the Cranky King, a fantasy, Deputies and the Return of Sagebrush, a western, or Acrobatic Astronauts and Galactic Getaway, a sci-fi film. During the 2013 D23 Expo, Tony Baxter gave a presentation on the former attractions of Disney parks. Included was an early test of the western overlay of Dreamfinder School of Drama, starring Baxter and his Imagineering team.
This is Joe Rohde, in case we have audio. Audio?
With the help of this magical blue stage
Joe Rohde
and your imagination, we're going to travel back to the days
Are
of
they
the
saying
old
Joe Rogan? Joe Rhodes. Of course his name is Joe. Guys, what's this guy's name? Chat? I forgot. What's his name? Joe Mama.
Well,
Got him.
this was pretty advanced, though.
You got Jello.
Yeah, for 1980
Good one.
to sandwich a lifetime video between a foreground plate and a background plate and do it every 4 minutes all day long was pretty advanced. We shot this all at the Billy Graham Studios in Hollywood, non-union, and a lot of the performers there worked at Disneyland, and all the costuming came from Disneyland costuming. And Joe, we got for free.
Chat, this isn't playing now.
Guests could also manipulate giant kaleidoscopes mounted on the wall. The electronic Philharmonic allowed
Kaleidoscopes
guests to
are
conduct
still
an
cool.
orchestra by waving their hands within a sensor. On the other side of this was the dressing room for the strolling Dreamfinders. The Magic Palette allowed guests to draw in pictures on computer screens. Probably the most famous part of ImageWorks was the entrance to the sensor maze, the Rainbow Corridor. This was used in a lot of promotional material and also provided the backdrop to a famous picture of Michael Jackson. These are just a few of the interactive attractions ImageWorks offered, and the lineup was updated and changed throughout the years. The pavilion was also known for its array of fountains located in front of the entrances. The jumping and leapfrog fountains provided the perfect introduction to the tone of the pavilion as guests
those are
approached it.
cool.
5 months after Epcot's opening, Imagineers were putting the finishing touches on the dark ride. Figment and Dreamfinder had already been introduced to guests through promotional material, strolling actors, and the various attractions in ImageWorks. But with the grand opening of the ride approaching, they were about to become legends.
Legends.
Well, where do you come from originally?
I come from somebody's imagination, where all wonderful and incredibly fantastic things come from.
He hasn't been programmed for modesty.
I think you're absolutely
That's
right.
cute.
Somebody was telling me that about a character named
a little bit full of
Dreamfinder
himself.
who lives in the Imagination Pavilion.
That is correct, Master King.
And he is the latest creation, I hear, and a real expert on the subject of creativity.
Oh my god, it's Drew Barrymore?
You suppose I could meet him?
I didn't realize.
Your wish is my command, Master K. Dreamfinder, this is Master K and Drew. Drew and Master K, meet the keeper of the sparks of imagination, Dreamfinder.
It's nice to meet you. And this is my assistant and good right arm, Figment. I
Good joke,
understand
good joke.
you're in charge of
He
some
said right arm.
very creative things. I would think that would be terribly interesting.
Right you are, right in there. Imagination's everywhere. The visions once inside your head exist inside that place instead. Imagination is my game, the sparks of which ignite the flame of your
God,
own
he's talking right.
creativity. And that's real great for you and me.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Want to go inside?
I sure do.
Journey into imagination. has Dreamfinder and his impish friend Figment, whisking you through words, sounds, colors, and facts that lead you to new ideas and thoughts. After Figment and Dreamfinder, you're left to test your own skills of imagination.
On March 5th, 1983, 4 months after ImageWorks opened, Journey into Imagination would debut. Guests lined up and faced long wait times to embark on their flight of fantasy. Guests entering the pavilion were immediately confronted with the loading station. After boarding, they would encounter a projected silhouette of Dreamfinder on his elaborate flying vehicle, the Dreamcatcher. The vehicles then enter a giant turntable, with the cars turning to face the center, where the Dreamfinder himself welcomes guests by singing One Little Spark and introducing Figment. This turntable was the most unique element of the ride. The Omnimover vehicles locked into the scene, moving along the circular path perfectly with the Dreamcatcher. There were actually 5 identical scenes created, all playing simultaneously. This means 5 Dreamfinders, 5 Dreamcatchers, 5 of everything was encompassed in the carousel. Walls separated the sections, as the effects and sounds from the scenes ahead and behind would have bled into one another. This long scene lasted around 3 minutes before guests exited the turntable and headed into the Dreamport to deposit all of the ideas that Figment and the Dreamfinder had created. The Dreamport featured wacky measurement tools and odd contraption used to capture the sparks of inspiration. Guests then entered the art section, a beautifully sculpted room in which the Dreamfinder and Figment used their imaginations to create works of art, with Dreamfinder holding a giant glowing paintbrush. The murals and sculptures were brightly lit with changing colors. After the guests twisted through the art section, they would enter the realm of literature. Here they encountered Dreamfinder playing an organ made of letters. He sang as he wrote a mystery novel. This area is much more dark and sinister than the previous section, but this is only because Dreamfinder has imagined it so. A fun effect in this room was Figment holding 3 blocks spelling cat, with the projection behind him changing from a cat to a bat as he turned the block to spell the new word. The next section was Performance, a much more lively area featuring Figment in a tuxedo and Dreamfinder conducting a light show. Next was a dark futuristic area for science, with Figment dressed as a hitchhiking astronaut. Dreamfinder was in a lab coat doing research by viewing educational films. There was also a projection of an animated Figment, his body size being manipulated as he learns the power of dreams. Guests then entered the final show scene. The vehicles rotated around Figment, accompanied by videos playing puppet versions of himself using his imagination in different ways, singing the chorus of One Little Spark alone for the first time. Guests then see Dreamfinder for the final time, behind a giant camera filming Figment, inviting guests to use their imagination and ImageWorks. Guests then disembark and exit the ride. Journey into Imagination was one of Disney's longest and most elaborate dark rides of all time. Dreamfinder and Figment would become a highlight of guest trips, and make frequent appearances in special events and television specials. There was something for everyone, between the state-of-the-art technology and effects, the beautiful sculptures and artwork, the lovable Dreamfinder and Figment, and the unforgettable Sherman Brothers song. It was truly one of the greatest rides ever produced by Disney. And it all started with Tony Baxter's One Little Spark.
Tony Baxter's cool.
However, on October 10th, 1998, Epcot's beacon of creativity and wonder would be extinguished.
Why?
The closure of Journey into Imagination perplexed guests, and its replacement turned that confusion into full-on outrage.
What did it replace with?
How could this have possibly happened? And what
Journey into your
was responsible?
Imagination. Oh,
the story continues on Yesterworld, where you can watch the second and final part to the history of Journey into Imagination. Picking up right where Kevin left off, we'll explore the events that led to the attraction's closure.
We have to go to a different channel?
It's controversial successor,
here, but I can't
as well
here.
as the fate of Dreamfinder, Figment, and the Imagination Pavilion
it's a collab.
as a whole.
I'm still mad about it.
To watch part 2 now.
It was smart of them, but it didn't pop up.
Well, a dream never spoils, Figment, because every time you dream it, it becomes as new and fresh as the day it was born. So keep dreaming your dreams out there. We'll keep them safe here until they come true. And they will. Bye-bye. Say goodbye, Figment.
Goodbye, Figment.
Usually it's the top part of the video. Where? No way is it this one. That's an hour and a half. If you click the eye. Oh shit. Really? Alright, there we go. Alright, we'll go watch it.
Previously on Defunctland, I explored how Tony Baxter took an idea from his never-built Disneyland expansion, brought it to Florida, and turned it into one of the most beloved dark rides of all time. Learn of the creation of and relive the magic behind Journey into Imagination in part 1 of this 2-part crossover between Defunctland and Yesterworld.
The story continues here, after the attraction was suddenly closed on October 10th, 1998.
Yeah,
and we're now going to explore what led to Journey into Imagination's closure, and its controversial alterations to not just the attraction, but the pavilion itself, as well as the ultimate fate of Figment and the Dreamfinder, and what traces of the beloved attraction still exist today.
Turbo Llama, we've already watched that. You were on this ride in '86?
To fully understand why Journey into Imagination was closed and how its replacements came to be, you have to go back 5 years to 1993, when Horizons lost General Electric as a sponsor. As without a sponsorship and Disney in the middle of its Euro-Disney financial troubles and cost-cutting initiatives set in place by Michael Eisner and Paul Pressler, by 1998, Horizons was hanging on by a thread, after having initially been closed in 1995, only to reopen the following year and kept as a placeholder for the temporary closure of Universe of Energy and the construction of Test Track, and would be the first example of just how reliant attractions and pavilions were on Epcot's sponsorship model, in which mega corporations would use this integration to promote their brands or products, and in turn, have incentive to put up the cash to keep their investments up to date. The same was true, if not even more, for the Kodak-sponsored Journey into Imagination.
Inside the glass pyramids of Journey into Imagination await some of the most exciting experiences in all of Epcot Center.
While still one of Epcot's most popular attractions and pavilions, Disney had been pestering Kodak for years to put up the funds for an update or major refurbishment. But with the rise of digital media and photography, the once dominant film imaging company was struggling financially and had resisted further investing into the pavilion. However, with Epcot's upcoming Millennium Celebration as an attempt to breathe some new life into the theme park, which even Disney executives admitted had become woefully outdated, Disney finally put their foot down and invoked Kodak's contractual obligation to avoid being replaced.
Oh shit.
You will do as we say. No. You have a contract!
Despite being one of their biggest sponsors, Kodak was in no financial position to properly fund the refurbishment. But with their rival Fujifilm having lobbied for years to become a major sponsor in Disney's theme parks. So much so, it's rumored that Kodak was behind the cancellation of the Japan Pavilion's Mount Fuji coaster. Kodak agreed, but with one catch. They could only offer a fraction of the requested funds. And pressed for time and resources, Disney agreed to Kodak's terms. And the ride was closed in late 1998 to begin work on a new attraction to replace Journey into Imagination. And despite rumors of being based on Flubber or an adventure through the mind of a child, it would instead be inspired by the neighboring Honey, I Shrunk the Audience.
This year, Epcot is also the exhilarating center of the Walt Disney World Millennium Celebration.
Epcot in the new millennium already embodies all of our ideas and dreams for tomorrow.
On October 1st, 1999, despite being omitted from vacation planning videos, the attraction debuted as Journey into Your Imagination. And even before setting foot on the ride itself, it was clear this was not the refresh or refurbishment many had hoped for, as the once stunning atrium of beautiful murals inspired by imagination had been replaced by a new queue involving the premise of an open house at the Imagination Institute, an extension of the plot within the neighboring Honey, I Shrunk the Audience.
Ladies and gentlemen, the chairman of the Imagination Institute.
Honey, I Shrunk the Audience was cool. Did you guys ever watch that?
In this new version of Journey into Imagination, Eric Idle reprises his role as Dr. Nigel Channing, and in addition to a series of painfully unfunny video segments about the various labs you'll be touring, he tells you of the Imagination
It was like a 3D show, so you'd go in the audience and then they'd like... There's that movie, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and you'd go in the audience and it was called Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, where they'd like pretend that you got shrunk, and so you just like see things really big around you, and they'd be like there would be like ants or something, and it would like shake the floor. It's weird stuff like that. It was cute.
Institute's newest invention.
It's the Imagination Scanner, developed right here at the Imagination Institute. You'll be scanned twice, at the start of your journey, and then again after you've completed a series of perceptual exercises.
If it hadn't already, by the time you reach the new loading platform, the horror of these new changes finally sets in, as the once magnificent and iconic turntable show scene introducing the Dreamfinder and Figment had been replaced by what lay before you, the loading platform itself.
How? When?
Evidently, with Kodak only putting up a fraction of the funds to renovate the attraction, it was decided to quite literally cut the attraction in half by roughly 35 to 40%, altering what was once a 12-minute experience into about 5. But believe it or not, that was far from the most controversial change to the ride, as while Dreamfinder and Figment had been icons of the attraction and considered the unofficial mascots of Epcot, every single Dreamfinder animatronic had been removed, and this new version contained not a single appearance or reference to his existence, with every single Figment animatronic also being removed, and was virtually erased from the attraction, with the character only appearing in the queue and a brief cameo on the ride, as a figment of Nigel Channing's imagination. And to add insult to injury, the catchy and memorable tune One Little Spark was non-existent, leaving virtually nothing of the cherished elements of the original. As far as this new experience itself, shortly after boarding the attraction, you arrive at the imagination scanner, only to find out that you have none.
Well, as you can see, there's not much going on upstairs, imagination-wise. That's just perfect for our experiments.
After being backhandedly insulted, what follows is a mostly uninspired and lackluster experience, void of any of the magic and wonder of the original. And with the exception of a single genuinely impressive illusion, the ride is a stream of stagnant show scenes and cheap visual and audio gags as you travel room to room. And while on paper these concepts might have seemed like a golden idea, without the budget to fully realize them, Journey into Your Imagination felt more like an above-average carnival ride. Approaching the end of the journey, you were retested with the imagination scanner, and wouldn't you know it, the results are off the charts.
Fantastic! Look what your imaginations have created!
And if fans of the original attraction hadn't already felt their hearts shattered to pieces, the voice of an all too familiar character was sure to do the trick.
You look like clever. What a brilliant first creator!
But the pain isn't over, as upon exiting the attraction, you get to see just what took the place of the gutted portions of the ride, the new ImageWorks What If Labs. Even worse, as many of the experiences were less than innovative, you might have been tempted to go upstairs to the original ImageWorks, only to find the elevator behind a wall, the stairway roped off, and both escalators caged up, as allegedly, when a Disney attraction closes for a period of 6 months or more, OSHA inspects and reevaluates whether it meets current safety standards, and in the case of the original ImageWorks, it did not. So without additional funds from Kodak to bring the original ImageWorks up to code, it was simply abandoned.
Oh my gosh.
It should come as no surprise that these changes and new incarnation were less than well received, with both Kodak and Michael Eisner criticizing the new incarnation. But despite these complaints,
why would Michael
the
Eisner
attraction
be
remained.
criticizing it?
However, around a year and a half later, in mid-2001, Epcot lost its third sponsor in less than a decade, and with Kodak still being unhappy with the results of their investment and guests considering it Epcot's worst attraction, it was decided to try to restore the ride back to some of its former glory, only this time Disney would foot the bill themselves, and Imagineers were given a modest makeover budget. However, as the tragic events of September 11th had caused tourism to plummet, the budget was cut to an estimated $8 million, the equivalent of remodeling a 2,000 square foot home for just $400. Regardless, on October 8th of 2001, just 2 years after opening, the Imagination Pavilion's main attraction was again closed. And just 6 months later, the ride reopened as Journey into Imagination with Figment.
You can go anywhere you can imagine on a journey into your imagination with a friend named Figment.
Upon entering the retitled attraction, while the queue featured a few new alterations, the biggest differences could be found immediately after setting off and approaching where the imagination scanner had previously insulted your creativity.
Hello, on your tour you'll see how the 5 human senses can help capture your imagination.
Oh, can I go too?
Absolutely not. This is one of our discoveries, the figment of imagination.
Yeah, I know all about the senses.
Right off the bat, the re-inclusion of Figment and the theme One Little Spark was a welcome improvement. However, the rest of the ride was hit or miss. As while it did feature new show scenes, many elements of Journey into Your Imagination still remained, and were simply retrofitted within the plot of exploring the human senses, of which only 3 of the 5 are actually part of the ride, more than likely due to budget constraints. But perhaps the biggest change and only real highlight of this reworked attraction would be its grand finale, in which a room full of Figment sang the theme One Little Spark with its original lyrics, several of which paid homage to the original Figment animatronics and puppets used in the film finale. While many agreed this version was a slight improvement, it was a far cry from recapturing the magic and wonder of the original, with some criticizing Figment's new portrayal as a nuisance and a menace, compared to his childlike innocence of the original. However, it was only meant to be a temporary solution that would ultimately be rectified with Project Gemini, a proposed $350 to $500 million overhaul of Epcot's future world that would have included drastic aesthetic changes as well as new attractions and experiences. Unfortunately, while then President Jay Rasulo loved the proposition, CEO Michael Eisner would only approve parts of the overall project, such as an initially planned alternate version of Soarin' Over California and a Little Mermaid attraction that evolved into Nemo and Friends, ultimately leaving Journey into Imagination on the sidelines, as a shadow of its former self. In 2010, Kodak ended its sponsorship with the Imagination Pavilion and its attractions, leaving many to wonder whether it would meet the same fate as the Wonders of Life Pavilion, Ellen's Energy Adventure, and Horizons, all of which fell into disrepair and limped along for years without a sponsor until their eventual closure or replacement. However, presently, for better or worse, this has not proved to be the case. And when looking back at the original Journey into Imagination, as far as what happened to the iconic ride elements, most, if not all of the Figment animatronics were thankfully spared, and are either in Disney storage or in the possession of collectors, with some having been put on display over the years since the attraction's closure. Even the puppets used in the ride's film finale surfaced in an online auction in 2008, and while more than likely not an original, in the queue of Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, Figment can be spotted in a frosted cage as one of the collector's items.
Oh, that's cool.
Less is known about the fate of the Dreamfinder's animatronics, though in Disneyland Paris's Phantom Manor, you can find an animatronic which used the same mold as the Dreamfinder.
That's funny.
However, a large portion of his floating vehicle, the Dreamcatcher, can be found in Epcot's Disney Gear Shop, with its various extensions also becoming prized possessions of collectors. Even traces of Journey into Imagination's original structure can be found if you know where to look, including the escalators used to enter and exit the original Imageworks, which up until 2016 was used primarily for conventions and company meetings before being converted into a Disney Vacation Club lounge, retaining much of its original structure. And for a short time, members could get a glimpse into the abandoned sections which have remained for the past 2 decades, but was quickly covered up by the end of the year.
Epcot is a reassurance that we are part of something great. If we can dream it, we can do it.
Today, while the character of Figment is more popular than ever, the future of Journey into Imagination with Figment is uncertain. But as it's clear big changes are coming to Epcot in the following years, we may yet see an attraction worthy of replacing the original Journey into Imagination.
Yeah, we saw.
So what about you? What do you think could replace Journey into Imagination with Figment? And if you haven't already, make sure to check out Part 1 on Defunctland. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Chat, I think we replace it with a ride that chat controls. It'd be awesome. Tortilla, thank you for the 14. It would not be good. You guys would do a bad job. I would like to make that very clear. Defunctland, the history of Alfred Hitchcock. Okay, here we go.
Action.
Whoa.
Thank you. Hey.
Well, this is gonna cost you, you know.
Cut! You have not seen anything yet.
don't think this video is about a Disney ride. Yeah, but it might be about Universal rides. How was the movie? It was good.
Alfred Hitchcock, largely considered one of the best filmmakers of all time, made himself well known to the public in his long career. He would do on-camera interviews, appear in the film's marketing materials, and cameo in the majority of his productions. He was better known to American moviegoers than most of the actors in his films, one of the many reasons that he is thought to be the first great director of modern cinema. Hitchcock did not work with a single studio, but instead signed short contracts with the giant production companies of the day. This led him to a variety of productions with Universal Pictures, including his final film, Family Plot, that was released in 1976. He would die 4 years later on April 29, 1980, at the age of 80. 10 years after that, on June 7, 1990, Universal Studios Florida opened its doors. Guests entered a new, thrilling garbage fire. But before they would get to the big, bold, and broken, they would pass through the production central area of the park. The attractions in this area worked like a charm, as most didn't need to work at all. Apart from the simulator ride The Fantastic World of Hanna-Barbera, this area consisted of mainly shows and exhibits. The Murder, She Wrote Mystery Theater, the Production Tram Tour, and an elaborate walkthrough attraction based around one of the greatest filmmakers of all time.
Alfred Hitchcock had a 43-year association with Universal. A master of suspense, he created a mood of underlying tension by placing ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. Surrounded by an increasingly hostile environment amid a brooding atmosphere and experiencing jolting moments of terror, they are confronted with forces bent on destroying them. They may discover that these forces are within themselves, seeds of evil ready to sprout. In the art of making movies, you will learn the camera techniques that have made Alfred Hitchcock an idol.
It's a class?
Even to the greatest filmmakers of his time.
Alfred Hitchcock was a master of cinematography, blocking, and practical effects, making his films a shoo-in for an attraction that gave guests a more intimate look at the filmmaking process. The walkthrough attraction was named Alfred Hitchcock: The Art of Making Movies. Upon entering Soundstage 40, guests would stand in a lobby lined with posters depicting some of Hitchcock's greats: Rear Window, The Birds, and Psycho. Clips from these films were shown on screen scattered throughout the room, and props such as a four-fingered hand and a giant phone with an M on the dial were on display. Before guests exited the queue and into the pre-show area, they were given a pair of 3D glasses by a team member. After a quick introduction to the attraction, guests were led into the next room to watch a pre-show video. This video was a tribute to the films that Hitchcock contributed to, and featured a narration from the man himself. Near the end of the 10-minute film, guests were instructed to put on their 3D glasses. The film then switched to 3D, showing a suspenseful clip from 1954's Dial M for Murder. Mid-scene, the projection seemed to halt, and the screen was seemingly being ripped apart from behind. The screen fell to tatters, and an angry flock of birds began to fly around the guests, throwing objects and setting off explosives. This effect was so realistic that Hitchcock's daughter, Patricia, reportedly cowered when she saw it in person for the first time.
Oh my gosh.
A blackbird landed on a perch, and its silhouette transitioned to the profile of Alfred Hitchcock. Lights came up in the main room, and guests were led into the main theater to be seated.
Hi, I'm Anthony Perkins. As you may recall, I played the role of Norman Bates in what became the most famous of all of Hitchcock's films. But why tell you about it when we can show you?
What's
the theater comprised of a large stage that housed sets depicting the Psycho House, the Bates Motel, and a shower scene setup. Screens were positioned on both sides of the stage. Anthony explained to the guests the different elements that go into making a scene like this, such as lighting and cinematography. He goes on to explain that by subbing Norman Bates' knife in the shower scene with the camera itself, the scene could be less graphic, but also far more effective in terrifying viewers. The lights came back up in the theater, and a member of the audience was picked out to portray Norman Bates. Using the shower setup on stage, the team member would guide the audience member and an actress in a shot-by-shot recreation of the famous scene.
What we're going to do now is show you the first 9 shots of the shower scene. As I call these shots out, they'll be appearing on the screens above us, so keep your eyes on those, because 3 of these shots have already been filmed. See if you can spot which ones they are. Camera, rolling. Playback. And action. Shot 1. Shot 2. Shot 3. Okay. All right, let's see shot 4. All right, nice. You ready, Mom? Shot 5. Shot 6. Shot 7. Shot 8. Shot 9. Cut.
Anthony Perkins appears again on the screens, remarking that it took Hitchcock 7 days with a 40-person crew to shoot the scene, and maybe the best way to appreciate that is to watch the final cut of the scene itself. Guests watch the scene, a crack of lightning sounds, and Anthony reappears, thanking the guests for coming. After this, seemingly the guest dressed as Norman Bates would approach the audience and threaten them with an actual knife. This was not actually the volunteer from a few moments ago, but instead the team member that was acting as the film's director, who himself had changed into a second Bates costume while the shower scene was playing. During this intimidating encounter, the volunteer had been hiding in the shower set. To make the twist work, only male volunteers wearing jeans and white shoes similar to the director's could be chosen. Upon exiting the theater, visitors would enter an indoor pavilion, where many sets of props from various Hitchcock films were on display. These included a set of the Statue of Liberty from 1942's Saboteur.
I'm Norman Lloyd. Saboteur was one of Hitch's first big American films, so naturally Hitch decided to do the finale at the Statue of Liberty. That's New York.
Did he only do scary movies?
But not really. It's produced by what is called a match shot.
I'll tell you action when I want you to start,
Not all of them.
Put your hands right here. Look right up into the camera. And when I say push, push back and throw your arms out like you're falling. Push!
Next time you visit the Statue of Liberty, enjoy the view. Just watch your step on the way down.
A portion of the carousel from 1951's Strangers on a Train, a set piece from 1954's Rear Window that could be viewed from a pair of binoculars.
Hello, this is Jimmy Stewart. In 1954, I made my second film with Alfred Hitchcock, co-starring Grace Kelly in Rear Window. Now, you're playing my role. Now take a look. There should be something interesting in all those windows. Everyday life as Hitch saw it. Of course, you might see something a little bit unusual, like maybe a murder. All right, time's up. Did you spot the murder?
I didn't see the murder.
Didn't, he just might have spotted you.
A hotel set model from 1958's Vertigo, and a wax figure of Alfred Hitchcock himself. Directors' chairs were lined up to watch more clips from Hitchcock films if guests wanted to stay inside, or they could exit into the Bates Motel gift shop. This shop offered your standard theme park fare of t-shirts and hats, but also more unique items such as prop replicas, DVDs, and VHS cassettes of Hitchcock movies. The shop even sold shower curtains. Alfred Hitchcock: The Art of Making Movies ran for 13 years, until it ended its run on January 3, 2003. The reason for its closure was Hitchcock's lack of relevance among the general public. So it was replaced by a modern attraction based on another landmark of cinema, Shrek. Shrek 4D opened in May 2003, marking an end of an era of sorts for Universal Parks. Though not the first attraction to be taken out in favor of screens and CGI, this was a particularly large blow given the history of celebrating Hitchcock at Universal Parks, and it was the final piece of Hitchcock history to be taken out of Universal Florida. The Psycho House and Bates Motel set, built in 1990 to film Psycho for the beginning, had been torn down to make way for the Curious George Goes to Town play area in 1998. Oh my god, that's crazy. Alfred Hitchcock: The Art of Making Movies hasn't been wiped away completely though, as former structures and references to it still remain in Shrek 4D, which I would like to remind everyone is still playing as of 2018. Props from various Hitchcock films still hang on the walls of the pre-show room. When Princess Fiona's singing causes a bird to explode, it isn't a bluebird like the film, it's a raven instead. A piece of the Vertigo hotel set can be found in the building, pictures of Hitchcock and the Bates Motel are on the wall, and a spiral staircase seen in the attraction still stands. Seeing these types of attractions come and go is difficult, but for a park looking to allow their guests to ride the movies, it might make sense why they would make the change. Still, many of the first visitors of Universal Studios have great memories at the attraction, and many Hitchcock lovers are devastated that it's gone.
His last appearance was in Family Plot, a shadow on a window. And then he's gone. Gone except for the screen. He left us his movies and himself 5 seconds at a time.
And you can look forward, and the road is clear ahead, and now you're going to create something. I think that's as happy as I would ever want to be.
Aww. I'm gonna be a director. No, I'm not. Whenever you see someone that like loves their stuff, it always makes you want to be that. You know? Like I can see like someone that just like loves making gelato, and I'm like, I'm gonna be a gelato person.
Good evening.
Welcome to Universal Studios, where you learn Hollywood secrets.
Hello.
Did you just yell?
Yeah,
Why?
because the cat bit me.
Oh, scary. It scared me.
Well, yeah, it's my new thing to get the cat to stop biting.
Okay.
I'll get over here.
Okay. I thought you got murdered and like the murderer was on their way to me.
Oh, no.
Alright, goodbye.
Alright, bye.
Jeez. Just yelling in the middle of the night. He got murdered in the shower.
And now you'll learn the secrets of the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman on the Universal Studios tour.
That's a cool ad. Okay, next. Hiccups. The history of Nara Dreamland. This is the knockoff Disneyland, I believe. Next.
On July 17, 1955, Disneyland Park in Anaheim, California opened its gates. The park was a near instant success and changed themed entertainment forever. Walt Disney had been told that his concepts for an elaborately themed entertainment park were unprofitable and that he was out of his element. Of course, Disneyland would be the biggest thing to ever happen to the theme park industry, and Disney theme parks are now the most popular theme parks in the world. Not long after the opening of Disneyland, Kunizo Matsuo, the president of the Japanese Matsuo Entertainment Company, flew to California to see the park for himself. He was more than impressed, and strongly believed a park like Disneyland would work perfectly in Japan. Matsuo became a mediator for the Japanese Dream Sightseeing Company, and got in direct contact with Walt Disney himself. Though Tokyo might have seemed the best location for a Disney park, Matsuo had a background as a kabuki actor, and was deeply invested in the history and culture of Japan, hence the proposed location of the country's former capital, Nara. Walt took to the idea of an international park, and agreed on building it in the city of Nara. Construction began on Nara Disneyland with the guidance of Walt and his creative team. The park was heavily influenced by Disneyland in Anaheim. It was designed in the same spoken wheel pattern and featured a replica of Sleeping Beauty Castle. Also in the hub was a great fountain and a small stage used for character shows and events. Nara Disneyland would feature a Main Street, a Fantasyland, a Tomorrowland, an Adventureland, and a unique Ancestorland in place of Frontierland. Park admission was to be free, and guests could experience attractions by purchasing tickets at ticket booths scattered throughout the park. Near the end of construction, Matsuo and Disney began to argue over licensing fees. An agreement needed to be reached for Matsuo to feature Disney properties in the park. The two were unable to compromise, and Disney pulled his support, meaning that Nara Disneyland had to be scrapped. However, the park was already near completion. Because of this, Matsuo
yeah,
quickly
it
rebranded
was,
the park to Nara Dreamland, and new mascots were created in the form of Ranchan and Dory-chan, two children dressed as British royal guards. While the end result was incredibly similar to Disneyland, there were still very few parks of its type in the world, and its design was especially unique to Japan, whose leisure industry was just beginning to recover after the devastation the country faced in and after World War II. The Happiest Place in Japan opened on July 1st, 1961, and while those familiar with Anaheim's park might have seen a shoddy knockoff, the visitors saw a world of fantasy.
That's cool. That's cool that they were
奈良は
excited
今
about it.
歴史的な文化財とは別に新しい観光資源を開発し規模の大きい観光地に飛躍しようとしています。子どもたちを対象にしたデラックス遊園地、アメリカのディズニーランドをモデルにしたと言われるだけに万事が大規模で日本離れしています。それだけにアメリカインディアンと古都奈良の佇まいは対照的でありすぎることも事実のようです。
At the park entrance, guests were greeted by Nara Dreamland's train station, which served as the sole stop for the Nara Dreamland Railroad. This narrow-gauge railroad took guests on a grand circle tour of the park, and journeyed through a tunnel that showcased a Wild West diorama. Upon entering the park, guests could then choose one of the 4 tunnels to take them to Main Street. This area included vehicles such as an omnibus, a fire engine, and horse-drawn carriages. The street included a town hall, a fire station, an opera house, a church, and a handful of shops and eateries. The focal point was the castle, which also functioned as the primary entrance to Fantasyland. Fantasyland included a classic carousel, a teacup ride, multiple boat attractions on a small lake, a haunted maze, and a skyway. Upon first glance, it might seem as though both the lake boats and the haunted maze were not Disney knockoffs, but this is only half true. When Disneyland first opened, it featured both the Phantom boats and the motorboat cruise, attractions similar to and probably the inspiration for Nara's boats. One of the boating attractions was Turtle Boat, a ride which took guests on small turtle-shaped boats that led them into Ryugu Palace to meet Princess Otohime and a group of mermaids. This was one of the many Nara Dreamland attractions to have its roots in Japanese history and folklore. Its design also drew inspiration from Disneyland's Storybook Land canal boats. The Haunted Maze predated Disneyland's Haunted Mansion by 8 years, although the classic Disney ride had been in development before Dreamland opened. The Haunted Maze's facade was shaped like a witch, a grotesque image, especially for the fantasy section of the park. The opening year brochure describes the attraction with the line, "Satan and many goblins await you."
Oh my
Guests
God.
were given a card upon entry to the maze and were challenged to find 3 checkpoints within the building to get the card stamped. The maze was very dark and had scattered theming, primarily skeletons behind metal bars. Fantasyland also featured an attraction called the Miracle House, a ride in which guests would enter a show building, board a small pirate ship, and fly over various scenes from around the world. This was clearly supposed to be Nara Disneyland's Peter Pan attraction before the licensing rights fell through. The Miracle House attraction would open with guests flying over the United States, Egypt, and the South Seas Islands.
Crazy that they
Fantasyland also had a variety of attractions added after the park's opening. These included a handful of kiddie attractions and carnival rides such as Flash Dance, Pirate Swings, and Pirate Octopus. An update of the opening day teacup ride featured extra theming, more elaborate paint on the cups, and a canopy that covered the ride area. Fantasyland also saw the addition of 3 coasters over the years. In 1979, the famous Screw Coaster opened to the delight of park guests.
Oh my
This was the
God.
popular corkscrew model designed by Aerodynamics, with similar iterations found at parks such as Busch Gardens
scary.
Tampa and Alton Towers. The Kids Coaster and Fantasy Coaster, both milder family rides, would later open on the northwest side of Fantasyland. Tomorrowland opened with a familiar popular attraction, Bobsleigh, a tubular steel coaster modeled after Disneyland's Matterhorn
Oh my
bobsleds.
God, that looks
The mountain
scary.
didn't just house the coaster, it also served as a midway point for Nara Dreamland's Skyway attraction that ran from Fantasyland to
Oh my gosh, they
Tomorrowland,
just
similar to
copied
Disneyland's setup at the time. In addition to Freeway, an Autopia-inspired attraction, Tomorrowland also had smaller family-friendly rides such as Astrojets, Loop-the-Loop, and a truly remarkable hovercrafts attraction,
but
where
I
guests
didn't
could steer
realize how
hovercrafts
intensely.
around a small lake near the bobsleigh. The land also opened with an attraction familiar to Disneyland fans, the Flying Saucers. This attraction sat guests in round seats on top of an oversized air hockey table. Guests could lean side to side to maneuver their seats over the air holes, with the goal being to bump the other guests. Some attractions added later on didn't quite fit the theming, such as Aero Development's antique car ride attraction. Though Aero made many iterations of this classic ride, Nara stood out, as the ride vehicles were actually a combination of 2 different car models, the top portion of the Ford Touring car and the bottom portion of the Aero Cadillac, which may have been done to cut costs. The antique car ride sat on the filled plot of the Submarine Voyage, a ride in which guests boarded a partially submerged submarine in a lagoon and journeyed into a show building. Tomorrowland also housed an unthemed classic log flume ride, which ran close to the monorail track. In 1998, Asuka, a wooden coaster manufactured by Intamin and inspired by the classic Coney Island Cyclone coaster, opened on the border of Tomorrowland and Main Street. For a park that was starting to slump financially, Asuka was a great addition to the park. Riders were surprised at just how good the coaster was. some claiming Nara Dreamland didn't deserve it. Adventureland sported a familiar wooden archway over its entrance and seemingly only ever housed one attraction, Jungle Cruise. This followed the same idea and plot as the Jungle Cruise at Disneyland. Guests embark on a cruise through the jungle to admire the local flora and fauna, only to end in a confrontation with a native tribe. Guests encountered a variety of animals, the skipper used a gun to scare away predators, and guests could delight in the backside of water. Ancestorland was Nara Dreamland's version of Frontierland, and it celebrated the history and culture of Japan. The land consisted of replicas of historical Japanese structures and was bordered by a river. Guests could take a variety of boat types along the river to navigate the land, as well as view miniature replicas of Japanese sites. The land ultimately served as a way for guests to take a trip through the rich history of Japan, and everything from samurai residencies, to markets, to brothels were represented in the area. Ancestorland ultimately met a sad fate, as it was demolished to make way for a water park area. Small remains such as shrines were left behind, though unkempt. The water park area that replaced it was pretty standard, and featured a variety of slides and pools. At its peak, Nara Dreamland brought in 1.63 million visitors a year. This led to its sister park, Yokohama Dreamland, to open in 1964. This park focused less on rides and more on entertainment and landscaping to entice guests. Despite that, Yokohama did sport a handful of attractions, which could also be ridden in exchange for tickets bought throughout the park. An opening day monorail, the Dream Development Dreamland Line, was unique in that it made a stop at the railway station outside of the park itself. It was short-lived though, as cracks began forming in its support beams and repairs could not be made. After a year and 4 months of operation, all service of the line was suspended, and ultimately never returned. The park also featured 3 roller coasters, a Ferris wheel, a children's train ride, and a submarine voyage. Both parks were well loved, and their popularity proved that Japan was ripe for major theme parks. Unfortunately for Dreamland, this would also be its downfall.
Yeah, I would hope they get sued. Do they not get sued? Gotta get sued. After I found out I was getting themed. Yeah, that's fair.
I'm in Anaheim.
That's so crazy. What a weird knockoff.
Never mind the fact that it's actually 10 o'clock, but I won't get picky.
What part of the castle are you in the building? I think it's like a wing. I'm not sure. Oh my gosh, look at that monkey.
In 1983, a true Disneyland would finally open in Japan. Tokyo Disneyland came with immersive theming and creative properties that blew Nara out of the water. The knockoff was hit hard by Disneyland's opening, and attendance sank to 1 million guests a year. The park quickly suffered from lower budgets and poor upkeep, and by the mid-90s, the park was littered with trash, rides were standing but not operating, and stray animals could be found roaming the property. In 2001, both Tokyo Disney Sea and Universal Studios Japan opened. This was the final nail in the coffin for Nara Dreamland. Attendance slumped to a depressing 400,000 visitors a year. By 2004, the shops on Main Street were quickly closing. Building facades were noticeably rotting and beginning to lean from foundational issues. Rust gathered on the coasters, and small rides shut down but remained standing. Some attractions, such as the log flume in Tomorrowland, would operate despite no riders. Yokohama Dreamland was facing the same set of problems, and the park closed on February 17, 2002 due to the financial issues. The park sat abandoned for 3 years before the rides were dismantled and the remaining buildings were repurposed for the Yokohama School of Pharmacy. Nara Dreamland continued operation until August 31, 2006. The park's closing was made known, but few guests showed up to experience the final day of operation. Midway through the day, it began to rain, and most visitors headed home early. The park closed its gates and was left abandoned.
Oh my God.
Nara Dreamland was frozen in time, if anything, gaining visitors looking to explore the remains. The park gained a huge following online, with people taking pictures and videos of the creepy, abandoned Disney knockoff. On top of urban explorers, vandals also frequented the park. Aside from the expected graffiti, many of them moved the park's props around in order to depict sinister scenes. No initial effort was made to preserve what remained of Nara Dreamland, and unlike most amusement parks that close, no attractions were sold to other theme parks in the region. The Nara Dreamland property was put up for sale in 2011 with no bids. The property was foreclosed in 2014 and finally sold to SK Housing in 2015. Renovation remained stagnant for a while, supposedly due to the demolition being too expensive for SK Housing. After a year, demolition finally began, and the entire park was gone by December 21st, 2017. All rides were scrapped and the ground was leveled to make way for senior housing. Nara Dreamland is most known for its abandoned state between 2006 and 2016, and is often believed to be the most elaborate Disney knockoff of all time. But it was so much more. The park began as the next Disneyland, with guidance from Walt Disney himself. It opened with immersive theming and rave reviews, and it paved the way for theme park companies to realize how profitable expanding overseas could be. While Nara Dreamland couldn't keep up with the giants in the entertainment industry, it should be remembered for its valiant attempt to bring magic and fantasy to a new part of the world.
Well, that was such a fast one. That's a fast app. What the heck? Okay. Okay, where were we? Episode Defunctland, the history of Disney's worst attraction. We watched this on stream a few years ago, but we'll watch it again. I already know this, right? It was in California's Adventure, and it was like a paparazzi thing. It's really bad, actually.
So
bad, and it was hosted by like bobbleheads.
I think it's fantastic.
Mr. Eisner?
Oh, it's Eisner, chat.
Oh, Michael.
Oh, certainly, Mr. Eisner. Sorry to disturb you, but I'm delivering to you Mr. Barry Bostwick and Mr. Richard Kind. If you'll just sign for them. Really? Yeah, right on there. Thank you very much.
Oh,
hey, Michael.
Richard.
Hi, Michael.
Barry. So?
Yeah, we were told to meet the Big Cheese at the Disneyland Resort.
The Big Cheese? I'm not the big... I wish I was the Big Cheese. This is the Big Cheese.
Oh! Hiya, fellas! Gee, I've been looking for you all day. Well, I want to give you a personal tour of Disney's California Adventure.
Yay!
What do you say we start with a ride on California Screamin'?
So, Mickey, it's just you and me, and I love that ride, and I want to go on it with you.
Aw.
Let's go.
Okay, boss.
Okay, boss. You know, Mickey, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful theme park.
You betcha.
It wasn't. And now the story of a company in panic, and the one CEO who just couldn't seem to catch a break. It is Defunctland. On July 17th, 1955, Disneyland opened its gates to the public, and along with elaborate theming, it had an expansive, magical parking lot. Due to its placement in Anaheim, Disneyland's land was far from sprawling. This made the parking lot prime real estate for any kind of expansion, including a potential second gate. While a variety of concepts for a second park were proposed over the years, it wouldn't be until 1982 that the Walt Disney Company would seriously begin to consider it. On October 1st of that year, Epcot Center in Orlando, Florida's Walt Disney World opened. This created the Walt Disney World Resort as it is known today, and it made a multi-day vacation to the resort necessary if guests were going to explore all of the offerings. 2 years later in 1984, it was becoming increasingly clear that, despite Epcot's success, Disney as a company was not doing well. A string of box office failures from their studio and big budget projects for the parks had brought Disney to the lowest point in the company's history, and many feared a takeover. In a bold move by the company, then CEO and President Ron Miller was ousted, and Michael Eisner was brought in as the company's new CEO. Eisner had big plans for the company, the most notable of which were to turn the company's failing studios around, make the existing Disney parks more appealing to older audiences, expand internationally with the addition of a European park, and finally make Anaheim a multi-day resort with the addition of a second gate. In 1987, the Walt Disney Company acquired the Rather Corporation. Decades earlier in the mid-1950s, Walt Disney had asked oil tycoon and television producer Jack Rather to build the Disneyland Hotel, since Disney lacked the funds, having spent most of his money constructing Disneyland. Since then and up until Disney's acquisition in 1987, the Rather Corporation had owned the Disneyland Hotel and property near the theme park. The obvious next step after obtaining the necessary assets was to finally build a second theme park in the Disneyland Resort, and it might have been that simple, had Eisner not gotten distracted.
This guy.
Apart from the Disneyland Hotel, the Rather Corporation also owned the RMS Queen Mary, a retired ocean liner that was permanently docked in Long Beach, California. After Disney acquired the Rather Corporation, Eisner became interested in transforming the Queen Mary and surrounding land into a new resort called Port Disney. Port Disney was to feature hotels, a cruise ship dock, and an all-new ocean-themed amusement park called Disney Sea. Eisner pitted the cities of Anaheim and Long Beach against one another, trying to decide whether to build Disney Sea as the second gate to the Disneyland Resort or build it in Long Beach within Port Disney. The announcement was made in January of 1990, and Anaheim and Long Beach both worked with Disney in order to bring the new theme park to their city. However, the citizens of both cities were not thrilled with the Disney expansion, citing the issues the residential neighborhoods of Anaheim already faced due to the existing park. This, along with a variety of other legal, logistical, and budgetary issues, caused Eisner to announce in late 1991 that plans for Port Disney and Disney Sea had been scrapped in favor of an alternative idea that the Imagineers had been drafting. Due to the popularity of Florida's Epcot, Eisner and the Imagineers believed that a West Coast version of the park was the best idea for Disneyland's second gate. The park would have been almost identical to Epcot, with a few notable changes, such as a larger spaceship Earth, improved future world attractions, and a much different world showcase, including a steel dragon coaster in the Asia Pavilion and a boat cruise around the entire world. Westcott was announced at the same time as the cancellation of Port Disney and Disney Sea in 1991. 1 year later, Euro Disneyland would open, which, for a variety of reasons that are too long to discuss here, failed horribly. The budget for the parks division was cut dramatically, and as ideas for Westcott grew, it became clear that the company could not afford such an expansion. But Eisner did not give up on the Disneyland Resort, and despite the issues, went forward with his plans for a second park. Eisner had a simple technique that he often used when he decided on new projects. The technique is known as jealousy. Whenever Eisner saw another company doing something successfully, he decided that Disney would do the same thing. Moreover, he would take the idea and do basically the same thing in basically the same place. For instance, after seeing the success of the amusement park zoo hybrid Busch Gardens Tampa in the early 90s, he greenlit Disney's Animal Kingdom. The park was just over an hour from Busch Gardens. After seeing the success of the Church Street Station nightclubs in Orlando, Florida, Eisner greenlit his own nightclubs in Pleasure Island at the Disney Village Marketplace. Pleasure Island was about half an hour from Church Street Station. So when Westcott was canceled and Disney returned to the drawing board, it wouldn't be long until Eisner was presented with a new idea. Since the Disneyland Resort at the time provided such a short visit to vacationers, many of the guests would go explore the other tourist offerings of California after their trip. Disneyland president Paul Pressler recognized this and pitched an idea to Eisner. If Disney could provide all the sights and attractions of the state of California within the Disneyland Resort, then guests would have no reason to leave and spend their money elsewhere. This concept would develop into the plans for California Adventure, a California-themed theme park to be located in the already California-themed California. Concept art for the park was released in 1996, a year after Westcott was canceled. The release stated that California Adventure would feature everything from soaring above Yosemite Valley to the glitz and glamour of Hollywood movie making. The original concept art from the park had a sense of serenity, and it seemed to be designed as an intimate, romantic tribute to California. In the Hollywood section of the park, there was to be a recreation of the theme building, the observation deck, and former restaurant at the Los Angeles International Airport, which was being renovated by Walt Disney Imagineering around the time that California Adventure was in development. This was to be the show building to one of California Adventure's signature attractions, Superstar Limo, a high-speed dark ride that would take guests on a wild paparazzi chase through Hollywood. As guests boarded the attraction, they would be greeted by Michael Eisner himself. Eisner would tell guests that they had to get to the big premiere at Grauman's Chinese Theater as soon as possible to sign a contract for their next film. But he warned guests that the paparazzi were all over town, and if they were caught doing anything to ruin their image, then Eisner would have to cancel the deal. The limo driver would then floor it in an attempt to get guests to the movie premiere on time. According to Disney historian Jim Hill, the ride system would have been a combination of a traditional dark ride and a family-friendly roller coaster. The ride would have also included a variety of jokes and gags. For instance, guests would fly past the famous Tail of the Pup hot dog stand with a large man in rhinestones creating sounds of flatulence. But as guests turned the corner, it would become clear that this was actually Elvis Presley squirting mustard onto a hot dog. The ride ended with guests reaching the Chinese Theater, only to have Eisner tell them that he would have to cancel the contract because they had been caught by the paparazzi. Then, a picture taken of guests while on the ride would be shown, cropped into a tabloid reporting on their limo chase. After this, guests would exit and walk the red carpet into the Chinese Theater, which was the gift shop and exit to the attraction, where fake Oscars, on-ride photos, and t-shirts would have been sold. The original concept of Superstar Limo was nothing groundbreaking, but it seemed that it would have been a fun dark ride that would have fit perfectly in the Hollywood section of the park. However, the mid-90s version of the attraction would not be the one that guests experienced when the park opened, and this time, it wasn't Eisner's fault. In August of 1997 in Paris, France, Diana, Princess of Wales, was killed in a limo accident. Her driver was supposedly fleeing from paparazzi when he lost control of the wheel. The tragedy captured the attention of the entire world, who grieved the death of the princess and the other passengers. As for Eisner and his team, they now had a big problem. Superstar Limo could no longer be a high-speed paparazzi chase, because it would now seem that it was some sort of twisted reference to the tragedy. The Imagineers scrambled, briefly considering cloning a Disney MGM attraction to the Anaheim park. Top contenders were the Great Movie Ride, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, or Rock and Roller Coaster, which at the time was still in development. Of these, the Tower of Terror was probably considered to be the top contender, as Eisner was heavily pushing for the idea of a ride-hotel hybrid. On top of most everyone besides him thinking that this was a bad idea that logistically would be problematic, if not impossible, it was also clear that the budget for California Adventure would not allow for this, or any of the other potential attractions, which meant that the Hollywood section of the park would not have a ride on opening day. Or would it? Forced, whether by situation or executives, to write a treatment for an acceptable version of Superstar Limo, the Imagineers had a few solutions. 1. Remove most of the references to paparazzi. 2. Remove any high-speed element by having the limos inch forward through the show building. And 3. Add more setting-specific jokes and gags. The idea wasn't good, and the Imagineers considered Superstar Limo to be dead. Unfortunately, if their job was to please the boss, they had done it a little too well. Eisner, who had been in the entertainment industry for decades, adored the inside jokes and Hollywood gags. He loved them so much that he greenlit the new, terrible version of the attraction. Imagineering, most likely baffled at what they now had to do, did their best to make the attraction work. This included scrapping the Chinese Theater gift shop, and adding the theater as a show scene in the ride in order to fill time. After budgets were slashed even more, the theme building exterior was scrapped in favor of a cartoonish cutout look. This art style was also used within the ride itself. The only three-dimensional animated figures would be that of celebrities, but due to the lack of budget, these would have to be celebrities whose likenesses were cheap or stars that the Walt Disney Company already had contracts with. Also, these were not animatronics, but barely animated figures with minimal, unconvincing movement. At some point, Eisner realized that the ride was going to be bad, so he made a few quick changes to save face. First, he removed a reference to DreamWorks animation that read Dream Jerks Animation, which referenced the ongoing feud between former president of Walt Disney Studios Jeffrey Katzenberg, who now worked for DreamWorks, and Eisner. Also, Eisner asked Imagineering to remove him from the ride, and the on-ride footage was replaced with a sleazy Hollywood agent barking orders at guests, proving that Superstar Limo foreshadowed more than one catastrophe. The retooled ride opened with California Adventure on February 8th, 2001. So was it as bad as they thought it would be? Yes. Yes, it was.
It's where Monsters Inc. is now.
Here and around Hollywood Boulevard, there's lots of fun and interesting places to eat and shop, all geared to bring out the Hollywood in everyone. And if you've ever wanted to be a star, then you have to ride Superstar Limo.
Superstar Limo.
The cartoon cutout exterior of Superstar Limo features a variety of landmarks from Los Angeles, such as Union Station, City Hall, and the Beverly Hills Hotel. One section features the world's shortest railway, Los Angeles' Angel's Flight. The railway, which was constructed in 1901, had recently reopened, but an accident resulted in the death of a passenger on February 1st, 2001, exactly 1 week before California Adventure and Superstar Limo would open. However, the prominent reference on the queue's exterior would not be removed. Another interesting feature was the flower bed that was decorated to look like a pool. After making their way into the queue, guests would find themselves in the baggage claim area in the LAX airport. The inside jokes to California and the entertainment industry would begin with a female announcer giving instructions to arriving passengers.
The white zone is for loading and unloading only. No schmoozing.
Further into the queue, guests would encounter television screens playing an entertainment news report featuring a horrifying puppet version of the late Joan Rivers. Rivers would describe Hollywood's next biggest star, who was set to arrive at LAX that day. The star turns out to be the guests entering the ride. In this queue area, there were more cartoon cutouts that helped foreshadow what a terrible experience guests were about to have. One example of this was a baggage carousel with packaged Oscars. After guests winded their way through the queue, they would approach the ground transportation section of the airport and board their limo. A sparkly, purple, cartoonish limo. A cast member guides them into their cars and tells them to enjoy their premiere. Guests are then sent on their way into their soon-to-be recurring nightmare. An announcer tells them to keep their hands, feet, and egos in the limo at all times. Ha! The limo enters a dark tunnel, and the guest agent appears on the screen attached to the ride's vehicle. Despite being a creepy, gross puppet, this turned out to be the most realistic part of the ride.
Now don't be late, babe.
The first showroom is Beverly Hills, and Regis Philbin pops out of the door, fanning himself with money. Next up, Melanie Griffith with Antonio Banderas, then immediately following, Cindy Crawford. And this is just the beginning. The next show scene is the Sunset Strip. Here, guests get to see Tim Allen and Jackie Chan. After this, guests enter a second tunnel and are reminded by their agent to not be late. The third show scene is Bel Air, where guests can see Drew Carey with a handful of star maps. Guests also run into sponsors trying to get them to sign advertising deals. A third tunnel features another reminder from their agent before the Malibu show scene. Here, guests encounter Cher, standing in the corner of the scene as if she doesn't want to be there. The limo then enters the studio lots, where guests encounter paparazzi, screenwriters, and production assistants, all represented through cheap cutouts. After this, guests arrive for their premiere, where none other than Whoopi Goldberg greets them. Guests are shown an on-ride photo of themselves before entering a final tunnel, where their agent tells them that they are a superstar. And that was Superstar Limo.
Very cool. I had a good time on the ride.
So now, everybody, I thought we'd go over to Superstar Limo.
Yeah,
you know why?
Why?
Well,
because I'm on it. Excellent.
That's right, because we're here at California Adventures, right next to Disneyland.
Exactly, located right next to Disney.
Superstar Limo has an exact... The picture of me in Superstar Limo, it looks exactly like you. You just can't believe it.
Really?
It's like a photograph.
All right.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. Now, this is not a scary fast ride, right?
No, no, no. This is just like a scenic, like as if you were new in Hollywood and you want to become a superstar to ride in.
Come on, my darling, let's take a ride.
Yeah. Say hi.
See you on the way back.
Say hi to me. Yeah, this is a real easy ride to go on.
Yeah? Okay.
Whoa!
Wow. There's Regis Philbin. That's my
see?
In this is vivacious Melanie Griffith and dashing Antonio Banderas. Wow. And there's Hollywood beauty Cindy Crawford.
Oh,
Cindy Crawford.
All right. Hey, there's Tim Allen.
Hold your sides, everyone. It's Funny Man Tim Allen. Come to Bel Air.
Look at that.
How about a map to your house, Drew Carey?
Isn't that Robert Zemeckis?
Hello, party. Hold your breath now.
Whoa! We got a picture of him.
Come on. Malibu, where the beautiful people become even more beautiful.
Pretend you're sleeping for the picture.
Pretend you're sleeping.
Why, the always entertaining Cher.
great movie.
Wow.
Hollywood favorite, Whoopi Goldberg.
Whoopee. All right, we're going to Sorrel, California.
There might be no better way to illustrate the reaction the public had to the ride than the on-ride photos. It is no surprise that the ride was received negatively, with guests complaining that they had waited a half hour to ride the cheap pop-up book. Superstar Limo was not the only issue. California Adventure as a whole was berated by the general public and critics alike.
But overall, the lines were so short at times out here.
I thought it was closed. This is outstanding.
I love
the
that she
concept was
giggled.
bad, the execution was worse, and Superstar
Yeah,
Limo
I'm
was
turning it down, guys.
unforgivable. It is no surprise that on January 11th, 2002, less than a year after the park opened, Superstar Limo was closed. Management had no replacement in mind. They just realized that guests visiting California Adventure would be a lot happier if they never experienced the attraction. The building sat abandoned in the Hollywood Pictures backlot for 4 years. Rumors circulated of various redressings that the ride could undergo. Jim Hill reported that the Imagineers were considering retooling the ride into Goofy's Superstar Limo, where Goofy would drive guests through Hollywood, and the
That'd be
C-list
fun.
celebrities would be replaced with classic animated Disney characters. To pull this off, Disney would take over 100 Disney figures that had been placed in Disney stores throughout the United States and move them into the new show scenes.
Oh my
Another
God.
idea was to reopen the ride as is, and over the course of a few months, introduce animatronics of the Muppets cast at various points in the ride. These characters would be wearing hard hats and be actively renovating Superstar Limo as guests rode through it. The Muppets would also be commenting on how horrible the current version of the ride was. The finished product after the transformation would be Miss Piggy's Superstar Limo. Of course, neither of these ideas happened, and the building continued to sit abandoned. It wouldn't be until after Eisner stepped down from CEO in 2005 that the Superstar Limo space would receive a new attraction. As the first step in what would become a $1.5 billion expansion and renovation to California Adventure, the new management team constructed the Pixar-themed dark ride, Monsters, Inc. Mike and Sully to the Rescue. The simple dark ride would take guests throughout the events of the first Monsters, Inc. film, and it was set to open on January 23, 2006. But that is not the end of Superstar Limo's story. Oh no, the ride very much lives on, in the absolute worst way possible. Since the Monsters Inc. dark ride was a quick fix for the park, coming a year before the major expansion, it didn't have the budget to bulldoze the space and start over. Quite the opposite, really. In order to save money, the Imagineers decided to utilize as much of Superstar Limo as possible. This included retrofitting the cutout exterior with door designs, which actually matched the film's intro animation, repurposing the limos into Monstropolis taxis, reusing the track layout and some of the tunnel sequences, and there was one more thing. Oh yeah, they stripped the C-list celebrity figures and dressed them into various animatronics throughout the
Isn't
ride.
that funny?
Some of these zombatronics are more obvious than others, and the Drew Carey and Jackie Chan figures are especially easy to spot. But don't worry, most, if not every figure in the ride was reused in some way. While the new ride has received mixed reviews, and its inclusion of the previous attraction's assets is unsettling to say the least, it is a far better dark ride than Superstar Limo. While Disney might wish they could erase Superstar Limo from the memories of the unfortunate park guests that experienced it, it is still important to remember the ride and the other missteps of California Adventure. The story is a good reminder that even a company as big as Disney can still get themselves into financial difficulty, creative gridlock, and even some pretty wacky situations. On the next Defunctland, Michael Eisner learns the differences between building a park in Tokyo and building a park in Paris.
We'll resort to the magic of Disney and hope that in the end, makes the dream come true.
Yay! Okay, I'm not going to start a new one, chat, because we're almost done. So I'm not going to start a new video if we're about to end. But good videos, chat. I remember going on the Hollywood ride. It was so bad. It was also, what I was saying was that it's weird that they had all those people ride the ride for promo and then like half of them weren't on the ride. You would think they'd get people that were like on the ride. It's also weird because wasn't like Sydney Crawford, did they have her in there? Wasn't she like a playmate? Surprised that they Disney would do that. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, I guess. I guess it's not that weird. You're surprised they had Jackie Chan? Why? He was in that one 80 Days Around the World or whatever. My sister used to love that movie. Oh boy, why isn't this going on? Hello, please go on. Wait. Wait, actually, why isn't it going? What the heck? Oh, Shouty, thank you for the, or Shody? Thank you for the, chat, I'm struggling. Thank you for the 10 gifted. I can't get this on there. Did I do this part wrong? Which means I did the whole thing wrong? I don't think so. There's definitely no gap. Is there? Because no, there's two. Okay, so. I don't know how to say your name. I'm sorry. You were right the first time? Shadi? I'm sorry. I'm dyslexic. It happens. Oh, that worked. I don't know what I did. What the heck? Oh. Okay, I know what I did. Katie, thank you for the prime. We're so close. Look at it. It's cute. It has a little... like Lumiere-esque thing. It has little rows. It's really dark in here. I can show you in the morning. But almost done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like the perfect amount. Look at that. So great. That's a little knife. Oh yeah, Fantasia mops. Cutie one more. No. No smiley face. We have the bake along tomorrow, so I need to go to bed so I can wake up and do the bake along. Are any of you doing the bake along tomorrow? What are you baking tomorrow? Maple bacon donuts. Maple bacon donuts. Should be dope. You can always leave the bacon off too. Probably next week. I still need to make the coffee cake. I don't remember what next week is. But it is on Saturday next week. I'm trying to switch from Saturdays and Sundays. Just kind of interchangeable. Uh-oh. Pumpkin. But yeah, should be good. Should be good. Okay, little pumpkin is in there. Little pot. Oh, there's the pot. She's fading? No, I'm fine. I just need to end for the sake of needing to wake up early. I'm a bit of a degen. I could actually, if it wasn't for like trying to be a normal human, I would prefer streaming from like 10 a.m. to 6 a.m. every day. But I shouldn't because my brain goes a little haywire when I do that. Oh, I don't even need to count. I don't need to count the rest because we're over. Because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yay! Perfect. Oh, sorry. I meant 10 p.m. 10 p.m. 10 p.m. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. That's what I meant. Sorry, I'm thinking of a bunch of stuff all at once. Thinking of a to-do list. I have like some stuff I need to do. I sent a bunch of messages on Twitter before I started streaming, and so I'm curious if any of those people have responded. Oh, this is supposed to be. Anyway. What is this for real? Love the imagination. What is it for real? It's a castle. What? What? Ta-da! It's kind of hard to see in the dark. But I can show you in the light tomorrow. Alright, chat. Not that bad. Not that bad. Took about... So 400 pieces take about 2 hours? That's good to know. Don't let me forget that. Okay. I'm gonna go to bed. Let me find someone to raid. Wow, Poke is up late. We will raid Poke lols. Have fun with Poke, chat. I will see you tomorrow. I'm not gonna play the song because I don't want to find it. See you tomorrow. Bye.